I never imagined that the day I'd receive the call that would save my daughter's life would also be the day I'd have to face the hardest truth a father could bear, that her miracle meant someone else's world had shattered. Standing in that hospital room, watching Emma sleep peacefully after the surgery, I couldn't stop thinking about the family who had just experienced an unbearable loss. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all began, to the moment when a regular Tuesday morning turned into the beginning of the longest year of my life.
Story based on true events. Names, locations, and some facts have been altered to preserve the privacy of those involved.
My name is Michael Thompson, and I'm a single dad living in Austin, Texas. Well, not entirely single by choice. My ex-wife Sarah and I split up 3 years ago when Emma was just 6. The custody arrangement had initially favored Sarah, but life has a funny way of changing plans. When she got an incredible job opportunity in London, one that would set her career on fire, she wanted to take Emma with her. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sign those papers that would put an ocean between me and my little girl. So Sarah made the hardest choice of her life. She went to London alone, and Emma stayed with me. They video call every Sunday without fail, and Sarah comes back to Austin once a year for 2 weeks, staying with her parents in Cedar Park while spending every possible moment with Emma. It was a Wednesday morning in late September when everything changed. I remember because Emma had been so excited the night before about her 4th grade field trip to the Bullock Museum that Friday. I walked into her room at 7 to wake her up for school, and immediately something felt off. She was already awake, lying in bed with this strange look on her face. "Daddy, I don't feel good," she mumbled, her voice weak and raspy. I sat on the edge of her bed and felt her forehead. No fever, but her skin looked pale, almost gray in the morning light filtering through her butterfly curtains. Then she turned to look at me fully, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Her eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes that always reminded me of autumn leaves, they were yellow. Not slightly yellow, but distinctly, unmistakably yellow. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to go see Dr. Patterson right now," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though panic was already crawling up my spine. "But what about school?" she asked, and that broke my heart a little. Even feeling awful, she was worried about missing class. "School can wait, baby. You're more important." I threw on jeans and a t-shirt, helped Emma get dressed, and we were at Austin Children's Medical Center within 30 minutes. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and anxiety, filled with other worried parents clutching their sick kids. Emma leaned against me, unusually quiet, while I filled out forms with shaking hands. Dr. Patterson saw us within an hour, and I could tell by the way his expression changed when he examined Emma that this wasn't just a stomach bug. He pressed gently on her abdomen, asked her questions about her appetite and energy levels over the past few weeks, and then turned to me with that look, the one doctors give you when they're about to say something that will change your life. "Michael, I'm going to be straight with you. Emma's jaundice, combined with these other symptoms, suggests something serious might be going on with her liver. I want to run some blood tests right now, and depending on those results, we'll likely need to do imaging, an ultrasound at minimum." The word liver echoed in my head like a bell in an empty church. Emma squeezed my hand, picking up on my fear, even though I was trying so hard to hide it. "Is it bad, Daddy?" she whispered. "We don't know yet, sweetheart, but Dr. Patterson is the best, and he's going to figure out what's going on so we can make you feel better." The blood draw was quick, and then came the waiting. 2 hours that felt like 2 years. I bought Emma a grape popsicle from the cafeteria, which she barely touched. I texted Sarah, "But what do you say? Emma's sick? Doctor's concerned?" I decided to wait until I knew more before calling her. No point in panicking her from 5,000 miles away until we had real information. When Dr. Patterson finally called us back to his office, I knew it was bad by the way he asked if Emma could wait outside with a nurse. She gave me a worried look, but I kissed her forehead and told her I'd be right back. The nurse, a kind woman named Rosa who had been at the clinic forever, promised to show Emma the fish tank in the break room. "Michael," Dr. Patterson said once we were alone, "Emma's liver enzyme levels are significantly elevated. Combined with her bilirubin levels and the ultrasound we did while you were waiting, I believe Emma has biliary atresia, a rare condition affecting the bile ducts. It's usually caught in infancy, but there's a form that can develop later in childhood." The words felt like punches. I tried to process them, to grab onto something that made sense. What does that mean? What do we do? It means her liver is failing, Michael. With medication and monitoring, we might be able to manage it for a while, but ultimately, he paused, and I could see how much he hated what he had to say next. Ultimately, Emma is going to need a liver transplant. We need to get her on the transplant list as soon as possible. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair, forcing myself to breathe. Transplant. My 9-year-old daughter needed a transplant. People waited years for organs. People passed away waiting. No, I couldn't think like that. I had to be strong. I had to fight for her. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How long does she have? That's hard to say. Could be months. Could be a year or more. We'll monitor her closely and start her on medications to slow the progression. But Michael, I won't lie to you. We need to find a donor. The wait list for pediatric liver transplants can be long. I don't remember much of the rest of that conversation. Something about appointments with transplant specialists, support groups, financial counseling. I nodded through it all, signed papers, and then went to collect Emma from Rosa, who had clearly been told to keep her distracted. My daughter looked up at me with those yellow-tinted eyes, and I painted on the biggest smile I could manage. So, what did Dr. Patterson say? She asked as we walked to the car. He said you've got something wrong with your liver, which is like your body's cleaning system. It's not working right, so we're going to give you some medicine to help it, and you'll have to come see him a lot more often. But we're going to take care of it, okay? Will I feel better? Eventually, yes. It might take some time, but yes. That night, after I'd given Emma her new medications and tucked her into bed with her favorite stuffed elephant, I sat in my truck in the driveway and called Sarah. It was 3 a.m. in London, but this couldn't wait. Michael? What's wrong? Her voice was thick with sleep, but immediately alert. She knew I wouldn't call at this hour unless it was serious. I told her everything about the yellow eyes, the tests, the diagnosis, the transplant list. She was silent for a long moment, and then I heard her start to cry. Sarah and I might not have worked as a couple, but she loved Emma fiercely. I'm booking a flight right now, she said through tears. I'll be there by tomorrow night. Sarah, you don't have to. Yes, I do. My baby needs me. We'll figure out the work stuff later. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my truck and finally let myself fall apart. I cried harder than I had since my own father passed 5 years ago. Then I did something I hadn't done with real desperation since I was a child. I prayed. God, I whispered into the darkness. I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if I've earned the right to ask you for anything. But please, please give Emma a chance. She's 9 years old. She hasn't even lived yet. If you're keeping score up there, if I've got any credit to my name, take it. Take whatever I've got coming and give it to her instead. Just let my little girl live. The stars above Austin were bright that night, indifferent and beautiful. I sat there until the cold seeped through my jacket, until I had no tears left, and then I went inside to sleep on the floor next to Emma's bed, just to be close to her. The next few weeks were a blur of appointments and specialists and second opinions that all confirmed the same thing. Emma was officially placed on UNOS, the United Network for Organ Sharing. We were waiting for someone else's tragedy to become our miracle. That's what they don't tell you about transplant lists. You're praying for someone to give up their life or their loved one's life to save yours. It's a brutal equation. Sarah arrived as promised, staying at her parents' house but spending every possible moment with us. The reunion between her and Emma at the airport was one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking things I'd ever witnessed. Emma ran into her mother's arms, and they held each other and cried while travelers streamed past them, everyone caught up in their own journeys, unaware of the battle this little girl was about to fight. Mommy, Emma sobbed, I'm scared. I know, baby, I know, but Daddy and I are right here, and we're going to get through this together. Watching them, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Gratitude that Sarah had come, guilt that I'd kept Emma from her, fear that we'd lose her anyway, and a strange kind of grief for the family we'd never been able to be. The treatment started immediately. Emma began taking a cocktail of medications, immunosuppressants, vitamins, medications to manage symptoms. Some days she felt okay, almost normal. She'd laugh and play with her dolls, lose herself in episodes of her favorite cartoons, beg to go to the park. Those days, I could almost convince myself everything would be fine. But then there were the bad days, days when she was so tired she couldn't get out of bed, Days when she threw up her breakfast and looked at me with eyes that asked why this was happening to her. Days when her skin turned more yellow, when her belly swelled with fluid, when she didn't even have the energy to play on her iPad. Those were the days that nearly destroyed me. I'd stand in her doorway at night, watching her sleep, and feel so utterly powerless. I'd see her dolls arranged carefully on her shelf. She loved to play house, setting up elaborate scenarios with her Barbie dolls, giving them whole lives and stories. She'd spend hours lost in those imaginary worlds, her voice doing different characters, creating adventures and happy endings. And I couldn't do anything but watch and wait and hope and pray. I prayed constantly during those months. In the car, in the shower, in the grocery store, lying awake at 3 in the morning. I made deals with God I had no business making. I promised to be better, to help more people, to go back to attending services regularly. I told him he could take anything from me, my job, my house, my own health, if he'd just spare Emma. Sarah extended her leave from work, then eventually had to go back to London, though she called every single day and flew back twice more over the following months. The distance was torture for her, I could tell. Sometimes I'd catch her on video calls with Emma, and I'd see the devastation in her eyes when Emma looked particularly weak or yellow. I think Sarah blamed herself for not being there, though none of this was anyone's fault. Life just happens sometimes, cruel and random and unfair. The seasons changed. Fall gave way to winter, and Emma had to stop going to school. Her immune system was too compromised, and the risk of infection too high. We set up homeschooling with a tutor who came 3 times a week, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Rodriguez who had a gift for making learning fun even under the circumstances. Emma tried so hard to keep up, to stay positive, but I could see the toll it took. She missed her friends, missed recess and art class, and just being a normal kid. Christmas that year was bittersweet. Sarah came back for 2 weeks, and we all pretended to be festive. We decorated the tree together, baked cookies, watched all of Emma's favorite holiday movies. On Christmas morning, Emma opened her presents with enthusiasm, even though I could see how tired she was. We'd gotten her a new dollhouse she'd been wanting, and she spent hours that day arranging the tiny furniture, creating rooms and stories. "This is the mommy," she said, holding up a small figurine. "And this is the daddy, and this is their little girl, and they all live together and they're so happy." Sarah and I exchanged a look over Emma's head, both of us understanding what she was really saying, what she really wanted. As winter turned to spring, Emma's condition worsened. Her skin took on a deeper yellow hue. She developed terrible itching that kept her up at night. Her belly swelled despite the medications. But the worst part was watching her energy fade, watching this vibrant, imaginative, wonderful little girl become a shadow of herself. Then came the waiting, the endless, agonizing waiting. Every time my phone rang, my heart would leap, hoping it was the transplant coordinator. But months passed. 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, and no call came. The doctors tried to be encouraging, telling us that pediatric organs, while rare, did become available. But I could see the concern in their eyes during checkups. Time wasn't on our side. I became obsessed with the wait list, reading everything I could about how it worked, about average wait times, about survival rates. The statistics were terrifying and hopeful in equal measure. Some kids got their transplants quickly. Others waited years. Some didn't make it at all. I forced myself to stop reading after I came across too many memorial pages for children who'd lost their battles while waiting. Emma's 10th birthday came in April. We threw her a small party at home with just family and a couple of her closest friends who we trusted to be careful about germs. She blew out the candles on her cake, a beautiful creation shaped like a castle that Sarah had special ordered, and I wondered if she was wishing for the same thing I was. By early May, Emma was spending more days in bed than out of it. The doctors talked about possibly admitting her to the hospital full-time to monitor her more closely. The unspoken message was clear. We were running out of time. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except finding a way to save my daughter. It was a Tuesday afternoon in mid-May when everything changed, 1 year and 2 months after Emma's diagnosis. Emma and I were in the living room. She was lying on the couch wrapped in her favorite purple blanket, and I was sitting on the floor next to her, controller in hand, letting her watch me play Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch. She was too tired to play herself, but she liked watching and giving me advice on which character to choose and which track to race on. "Take the shortcut, Daddy," she said, her voice weak but excited. "The one through the waterfall!" I was laughing at her enthusiasm, about to respond, when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Austin Children's Medical Center Transplant Department. My heart stopped. I looked at Emma, who was focused on the screen, oblivious. I stood up slowly and walked toward the kitchen to take the call. "Hello? Michael Thompson? This is Jennifer Martinez from the Transplant Coordinator's office at Austin Children's. I have news about Emma." My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "We've found a compatible donor. A young boy who experienced a tragic accident yesterday has been declared brain dead, and his family has generously agreed to organ donation. His liver is an excellent match for Emma's size and blood type." I had to grab the counter to stay standing. A boy, someone's son, a family somewhere in unimaginable pain, and their grief was about to be Emma's lifeline. "How soon?" I managed to ask. "Can you bring Emma in for preliminary testing today? If everything checks out, and we have every reason to believe it will, we'll admit her immediately and prepare for surgery tomorrow morning. The organ is being preserved, but we need to move quickly. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Michael, make sure you pack a bag for both of you. If the tests confirm compatibility, you won't be leaving the hospital for at least a week." I hung up and stood in my kitchen, staring at nothing, trying to process what I just heard. A donor. After 13 months of waiting, of praying, of watching my daughter fade, we had a donor. But somewhere in Texas, a family was preparing for a funeral. I couldn't celebrate. How could I? A child was gone. But I also couldn't ignore the desperate, fierce joy and relief flooding through me. I walked back into the living room on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Emma looked up at me from the couch, and something in my expression must have given it away because her eyes went wide. "Daddy? What's wrong?" I knelt down beside her, taking her small, thin hand in mine. Her fingers felt so fragile, like bird bones. "Emma, sweetheart, that was the hospital. They found a match for you. They found a liver." For a moment, she just stared at me, processing. Then tears filled her eyes. "Really? Really, Daddy? Really, baby?" "We need to go to the hospital right now for some tests, and if everything looks good, they're going to do the surgery tomorrow." She threw her arms around my neck, and I held her carefully, aware of how delicate she'd become. She was crying, and so was I, and for a moment we just stayed like that, holding on to each other in this fragile, precious hope. "Go to your room and pick out some things you want to bring to the hospital, okay? Your favorite pajamas, maybe some books, or your iPad. We're going to be there for a little while." While she slowly made her way upstairs, I called Sarah. She answered on the first ring. It was almost midnight in London, but I knew she kept her phone on full volume at night just in case. "Michael? They found a donor. We're taking her in now." I heard her gasp, then the sound of movement, sheets rustling. Oh my God, Michael. I'm getting on the next flight. I'll be there as soon as I can. The surgery is tomorrow morning. I know. I'll get there. Even if I have to charter a plane, I'll get there. Tell Emma I love her. Tell her mommy is coming. After we hung up, I stood in Emma's room for a moment, just breathing, trying to center myself. Then I went to my bedroom and threw clothes into a duffel bag, not even paying attention to what I was grabbing. I added my phone charger, my wallet, Emma's medications. My hands were moving on autopilot while my brain tried to catch up with what was happening. Before we left, I went into my bedroom and closed the door. I dropped to my knees beside my bed, something I hadn't done since I was a child attending church with my grandmother, and I prayed, "God, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to feel grateful when I know another family is in agony right now. Please watch over them. Please give them peace. And please, please let this work. Let the surgery go well. Let Emma's body accept this gift. I'm begging you." I paused, thinking of that family I'd never met, that boy whose name I didn't know. And God, please bless that child and his family. Thank them for me since I can't do it myself. Tell them their son is saving my daughter's life. Tell them their pain isn't meaningless, that something beautiful is coming from something so terrible. Please comfort them. I wiped my eyes, stood up, and went to get my daughter. The drive to the hospital felt surreal. It was a beautiful spring afternoon, the kind of day that belongs in commercials. Blue sky, puffy white clouds, temperatures in the mid-70s. People were going about their normal lives, sitting on patios, walking dogs, washing cars. None of them knew that in my passenger seat sat a little girl who was about to receive a miracle, or that somewhere else in this city, a family was saying goodbye to their son forever. Emma was quiet during the drive, staring out the window. I kept glancing over at her, this brave, beautiful child who'd endured so much. "Are you scared?" I asked gently. She nodded. "A little, but also excited. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense, sweetheart. Daddy, the boy who gave me his liver, did he pass away?" I'd been dreading this question. Emma was young, but she wasn't stupid. She understood more than most kids her age, forced to grow up fast by her illness. "Yes, baby, he did. He had an accident, and his family made the very brave choice to donate his organs so that other children could live. I wish I could thank them." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." At the hospital, we were immediately taken to the transplant unit. The nurses knew Emma by now. We'd been coming here for over a year, and they greeted her with genuine warmth and excitement. News traveled fast in this unit, and everyone knew Emma was getting her transplant. "There's our fighter," said Nurse Rachel, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been part of Emma's care team from the beginning. "Ready to get that new liver?" Emma managed to smile. "I think so." They ran her through a battery of tests: more blood work, chest x-rays, an EKG, a final ultrasound. Dr. Patricia Chen, the transplant surgeon, came to examine Emma personally. She was a small woman with steady hands and kind eyes, and I'd trusted her from the moment we met. "Everything looks good, Emma," Dr. Chen said after the examination. "Your blood work shows you're stable enough for surgery, and this donor is an excellent match. We're going to take very good care of you tomorrow, okay?" "Will it hurt?" Emma asked in a small voice. "You're going to be asleep for the whole surgery, so you won't feel anything during it. Afterward, yes, you'll be sore for a while. But we have really good medicine to help with the pain, and every day you'll feel a little bit better. And Emma, after you heal, you're going to feel better than you have in over a year. You're going to have energy again. The yellow will go away from your eyes. You'll be able to go back to school, play with your friends, do all the things you've been missing." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really, I promise." After Dr. Chen left, they admitted Emma to a private room. The view looked out over the hospital courtyard, where I could see a small garden with benches and a fountain. The evening light was golden, painting everything in warm tones. A hospital chaplain came by, Pastor Williams, a gentle man with gray hair and a peaceful presence. He asked if we'd like him to pray with us, and I said yes. We held hands, the three of us, and he said a beautiful prayer, asking for steady hands for the surgical team, for Emma's body to accept her new organ, for peace for the donor's family, and for strength for all of us. After he left, Emma and I had dinner together. Well, she had chicken broth and jello since she couldn't eat solid food before surgery, and I picked at a sandwich from the cafeteria. We watched a movie on her iPad, some animated thing about talking animals that she loved. She fell asleep halfway through, exhausted from the day's stress and excitement. I sat in the chair next to her bed, watching her sleep, studying her face in the dim light from the hallway. Her skin was still too yellow, her face too thin, but tomorrow all of that would start to change. Tomorrow, she'd get her second chance. Around 9 that evening, Sarah called. She'd managed to get on a late flight out of Heathrow and would land at Austin Bergstrom around 6 in the morning, right around when Emma's surgery would begin. "I'm going to make it," she said, her voice thick with tears and relief. "I'll be there before she goes in. She'll be so happy to see you. Michael, I can't believe this is happening. After all this time. I know. Are you okay?" The question surprised me. Sarah and I hadn't been close in years, hadn't really talked about anything beyond Emma's care and logistics. Honestly, I don't know. I'm grateful and terrified and guilty all at once. Guilty? There's a family out there who just lost their son. Their nightmare is our miracle. How am I supposed to feel about that? Sarah was quiet for a moment. You feel grateful. You honor their sacrifice by making sure Emma lives the fullest life possible. That's all we can do. And after we hung up, I tried to sleep in the reclining chair in Emma's room, but it was impossible. My mind was racing, going through every possible scenario. What if something went wrong during surgery? What if her body rejected the organ? What if, after all this, we still lost her? Around 2 in the morning, unable to stay still any longer, I carefully left Emma's room and walked the halls of the hospital. The transplant unit was quiet at this hour, just the soft beeping of machines and the occasional nurse passing by. I found a small chapel on the 3rd floor, A plain room with simple wooden pews and a stained glass window that would probably be beautiful in daylight. I sat in the front pew and let my mind wander. I thought about that boy, the donor. What had his life been like? What had he loved? What were his dreams? Did he have siblings? A dog? A favorite subject in school? I wished I could know, could thank his family properly, could tell them that their son's final act was one of extraordinary kindness. Please let this work, I whispered into the darkness. Please. I must have dozed off in the chapel, because the next thing I knew, a hand was gently shaking my shoulder. It was one of the nurses. Mr. Thompson, it's 5:30. They'll be prepping Emma soon. I jolted awake, disoriented for a moment, then remembered where I was and why. I thanked the nurse and hurried back to Emma's room. She was already awake, looking small and scared in her hospital bed. A different nurse was checking her vitals and explaining what was going to happen. "Daddy," Emma said when she saw me, and I heard the fear in her voice. "Right here, baby. I'm right here." I took her hand, and we sat together in silence for a few minutes. There wasn't much to say. We both knew what was coming, what was at stake. At 6:15, Sarah burst into the room, her hair wild, still in the clothes she'd worn on the plane, her carry-on bag slung over her shoulder. "Mommy!" Emma's face lit up. "Baby girl!" Sarah dropped her bag and rushed to the bed, pulling Emma into a careful hug. "I'm here. I made it." Watching them, I felt a lump in my throat. Whatever had happened between Sarah and me, whatever mistakes we'd created this incredible person. And today, we were fighting to keep her in this world. At 6:45, the surgical team arrived. Dr. Chen came in first, already in her scrubs, followed by 2 surgical nurses and an anesthesiologist. "Good morning, Emma," Dr. Chen said warmly. "Are you ready?" Emma looked at me, then at Sarah, then back at the doctor. "Will my mommy and daddy be close by?" "They'll be right outside the operating room the whole time, and as soon as you wake up, they'll be the first people you see. I promise." The anesthesiologist, a kind man named Dr. Patel, explained how he was going to give Emma medicine that would make her sleep, and that when she woke up, the surgery would be all done. "Will I dream?" Emma asked. "Maybe. If you do, try to dream about something fun. What's your favorite place?" "The beach." "We went to Galveston last year, and I loved it." "Then dream about the beach. Dream about sunshine and sand and waves." They began prepping Emma for transport, adjusting her IV, checking her vital signs one more time. Sarah and I were allowed to walk with them as far as the operating room doors. In the hallway, as they wheeled Emma toward surgery, she reached up and grabbed my hand. "Daddy, I'm scared." I leaned down close to her face. "I know, baby. But listen to me. You are the bravest, strongest person I know. You've been fighting for over a year, and you never gave up. Today is the day you win. Today is the day everything changes. I love you so much, Emma. So much. I love you too, Daddy." Sarah leaned over from the other side of the bed. "Emma, baby, when you wake up, everything is going to be different. You're going to start feeling better, getting stronger. And Mommy and Daddy are going to be right there with you every single step. You're not alone, sweetheart. You're never alone." At the doors to the surgical suite, we had to stop. Only the medical team could go beyond this point. Sarah and I each kissed Emma's forehead, told her we loved her one more time, and then watched as they wheeled her through the doors. The moment she disappeared from sight, Sarah collapsed against me, sobbing. I held her, my own tears falling into her hair, and we stood there in that hallway, 2 people who'd fallen apart years ago, coming together in shared terror and love for our daughter. A nurse directed us to the surgical waiting room, a space I'd walked past dozens of times over the past year but never had to use. It was painted in calming blues and greens, with comfortable chairs and a coffee station and magazines nobody ever read. There were 3 other families there, all with the same expression on their faces, that particular blend of hope and fear that comes with waiting for someone you love to come out of surgery. Sarah and I sat next to each other, not talking, just existing in that liminal space between the before and after. I called my parents, Sarah's parents, a few close friends. I told them all the same thing. Emma was in surgery. We'd update them when we knew more. Please pray. My phone buzzed with messages of support and encouragement. Sarah's phone did the same, but neither of us could focus on them. We just kept staring at the doors that led back to the surgical suites, willing them to open with good news. An hour passed. Then 2. Dr. Chen had said the surgery would take between 4 and 6 hours, depending on complications. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. Around 9 in the morning, I got up and started pacing. I couldn't sit still anymore. I walked the perimeter of the waiting room over and over, counting my steps, trying to keep my mind occupied. Sarah called her office in London, explaining the situation to her boss. I heard her voice crack as she told him she didn't know when she'd be back, that her daughter was in surgery, that everything else would have to wait. At 10:30, a surgical nurse came out to give us an update. Everything is going smoothly. Dr. Chen wanted me to tell you that the donor liver looks excellent, and Emma is tolerating the procedure well. We're past the halfway point. It was something. It was hope. Sarah grabbed my hand and squeezed it so hard it hurt, but I didn't care. More time passed in that strange, suspended way time moves when you're waiting for news that could change everything. Other families came and went. Some received good news and left with tears of joy. Others received news that left them broken, and I had to look away, unable to bear the thought that we might soon be joining them. At 1:15 in the afternoon, nearly 6.5 hours after Emma had gone into surgery, the doors opened and Dr. Chen emerged. She was still in her surgical scrubs, her mask pulled down around her neck, and when she saw us, she smiled. That smile. I'll remember that smile for the rest of my life. Sarah and I both jumped to our feet and rushed toward her. The surgery was a complete success, Dr. Chen said, and I felt my knees nearly buckle with relief. The donor liver was in excellent condition, and the transplant went perfectly. Emma's body has already started accepting the new organ. Her color has already improved. You'll see when you visit her. She's in recovery now, and we'll be monitoring her very closely over the next 48 hours, but I'm very optimistic. I couldn't speak. I just stood there as tears streamed down my face. Sarah was asking questions, something about recovery time and potential complications, but I couldn't process the words. All I could think was, she made it. My little girl made it. Dr. Chen put a hand on my shoulder. Michael, Emma is going to be okay. She's going to have a full, healthy life. You can see her in about an hour, once she's settled in the ICU. Thank you, I finally managed to choke out. Thank you so much. After Dr. Chen left, Sarah and I held each other and cried. Not the tears of fear we'd shed before, but tears of relief and joy and gratitude so overwhelming it felt like my chest might burst open. The hour we had to wait before seeing Emma felt longer than the entire surgery. Sarah and I sat close together, not quite holding hands but our shoulders touching, both of us too wired to speak. We'd been through so much, the divorce, the distance, the fights about custody, but in that moment, none of it mattered. We were just two parents who loved their daughter more than anything in the world, and she'd just been given a second chance at life. Finally, a nurse came to get us. She's awake and asking for you both. We followed her through a maze of hallways to the pediatric ICU. The unit was quieter than I expected, just the soft beeping of monitors and the hushed voices of medical staff. Emma's room was at the end of the hall, a glass-walled space filled with equipment that looked intimidating but meant she was being carefully watched. Nothing could have prepared me for the emotion of seeing her. Emma was propped up slightly in the bed, tubes and wires connected to her, but her eyes, her beautiful eyes, were already less yellow. Her skin had more color. She looked tired and fragile, but she also looked alive in a way she hadn't in months. Mommy? Daddy? Her voice was weak and hoarse from the breathing tube they'd just removed. Right here, baby, I said, moving to one side of her bed while Sarah took the other. We're right here. Did it work? She asked, tears sliding down her cheeks. Did I get the new liver? Yes, sweetheart, Sarah said, carefully stroking Emma's hair. Dr. Chen said everything went perfectly. You're going to be okay. Emma closed her eyes, and more tears came. I was so scared. I know, baby. But you were so brave. The bravest girl in the whole world. We stayed with her for the next several hours, taking turns sitting beside her bed, holding her hand, talking to her in soft voices. The nursing staff was incredible, checking on her constantly, adjusting her pain medication, explaining everything they were doing. Emma drifted in and out of sleep, exhausted from the ordeal her body had just been through. That first night, I insisted Sarah go to my house to shower and sleep in a real bed. She'd been traveling for nearly 24 hours straight. She protested, but I assured her I'd call immediately if anything changed. I spent the night in a chair beside Emma's bed, dozing fitfully, waking every time a monitor beeped or a nurse came in to check vitals. The next morning, Dr. Chen came by on her rounds, and the news kept getting better. Emma's new liver was functioning beautifully. Her blood work showed exactly what they hoped to see. The yellow in her eyes was fading rapidly. If things continued this way, she'd be moved out of the ICU in a few days. Over the following week, I watched my daughter transform. Day by day, hour by hour, she grew stronger. The yellow disappeared from her skin and eyes. Her energy returned. She started eating real food again, complaining about the hospital meals in a way that made me want to laugh and cry at the same time because it was so beautifully normal. Sarah extended her leave from work indefinitely. We fell into a routine, trading off who stayed at the hospital and who went home to rest, eat, shower. My parents came to visit, Sarah's parents too, and Emma's room filled with flowers and balloons and stuffed animals. One evening, about 9 days after the surgery, when Emma was asleep and I was sitting alone in her room, I found myself thinking again about the donor family, the boy who'd given Emma this gift. For over a year, I'd been so focused on saving my daughter that I hadn't thought much about what came after. But now, sitting in this quiet room, watching Emma sleep peacefully, I felt an overwhelming need to know about the family who'd made this possible, to thank them somehow. I knew the rules. Organ donors and recipients were kept anonymous for the first year, to give both families time to heal and process. The hospital could facilitate contact after that, but only if both families agreed. It seemed like an eternity to wait, but I understood the reasoning. Emma came home 2 weeks after the surgery, still tired but improving every day. The doctors were amazed at how well her body had accepted the new organ. She was on anti-rejection medications that she'd need to take for the rest of her life, but that seemed like a small price to pay for the miracle we'd witnessed. Sarah stayed in Austin for another month, working remotely from London as much as possible. It was strange having her around so much after years of distance, but also comforting. We'd both changed since the divorce, grown in different directions, but our love for Emma gave us common ground. The day Sarah finally had to return to London was hard on all of us. Emma clung to her at the airport, crying and begging her to stay just a little longer. "I'll be back soon, baby," Sarah promised, "and we'll video call every day, just like always. And look how strong you're getting. By the time I see you again, you'll probably be running marathons." Emma laughed through her tears. "Daddy can't even run a marathon." "Hey now," I protested, but I was smiling. After Sarah left, Emma and I settled back into our life, but it was a different life than before. She started physical therapy to build back the strength she'd lost during her illness. She began homebound schooling again, working toward going back to regular school in the fall. She played with her dolls for hours, creating elaborate stories with happy endings where everyone lived and nobody got sick. The months passed. Summer arrived with its brutal Texas heat, and Emma and I spent time in our backyard pool, being careful about her surgical scar, but thrilled that she had the energy to swim at all. Her 10-year checkup showed perfect liver function. Dr. Chen actually got emotional during the appointment, telling us how rare it was to see such a successful transplant. "She's going to have a completely normal life," Dr. Chen said. "College, career, maybe even have children of her own someday." This transplant gave her everything back. By fall, Emma was back in school full-time. Watching her get on the school bus that first morning, backpack slung over her shoulder, excited to see her friends again, I had to fight back tears. A year ago, I'd been terrified I'd never see this day. As the 1-year anniversary of the transplant approached, I called the hospital's transplant coordinator. "I want to reach out to the donor family," I told Jennifer Martinez, "if they're willing." "Let me make some calls," she said. "I'll see if they're open to contact." 3 days later, she called me back. "Michael, I have good news. The donor family has agreed to speak with you. I'm going to give you the mother's phone number. Her name is Rebecca Mitchell, and she lives in Dallas. She lost her son Nathan in the accident that—" Jennifer's voice caught. "That saved Emma's life." I wrote down the number with shaking hands. That evening, after Emma was asleep, I sat on my back porch, staring at my phone, trying to work up the courage to make the call. What do you say to someone whose tragedy became your miracle? How do you express gratitude that doesn't feel grotesque in the face of their loss? Finally, I dialed. The phone rang 3 times, and then a woman's voice answered. "Hello? Hi, is this Rebecca Mitchell?" "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Michael Thompson. My daughter Emma received your son's liver last year." There was a long pause, and I heard her breath catch. Oh, oh my goodness. I didn't expect. I mean, I told them I was willing to talk, but I didn't think you'd actually call so soon. I'm sorry. I can call back another time if. No, she said quickly. No, it's okay. It's emotional, you know? Hearing from you. I understand, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I cannot imagine what you've been through. Rebecca was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. Can you tell me about your daughter? About Emma? So I did. I told her everything. About Emma's diagnosis, the waiting, the surgery, the miraculous recovery. I told her about Emma's personality, how she loved reading and art and playing with her dolls, how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up, how she was kind and funny and brave. She's 10 now, I said. She's healthy and strong and full of life, and none of that would be possible without your son's gift, without your decision to donate. Rebecca was crying openly now. Thank you for telling me. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. To know that that his passing meant something. That part of him is still out there, living and thriving. Would you like to tell me about Nathan? And she did. She told me about her son, who had just turned 8 when the accident happened, how he was passionate about baseball, obsessed with the Houston Astros, always wanting to play catch in the backyard, how he loved building things with Legos, creating elaborate structures that took up half his bedroom, how he had the kindest heart, always standing up for kids who were being bullied at school, always sharing his lunch with anyone who forgot theirs. One day, Rebecca said, her voice breaking, he was flying his kite at Memorial Park in Dallas. It was one of those perfect spring days, you know? Blue sky, gentle breeze. The kite got caught in a tree, a big oak tree at the edge of the park. Our neighbor Tom was with us, and he helped Nathan climb up to get it. Nathan was so excited to have rescued his kite, but then. She paused, and I could hear her struggling to continue. He slipped, fell about 15 feet, and hit his head on a root. Tom came running to our house. We lived just down the street, and I ran to the park. Nathan was unconscious. The ambulance came, and at the hospital they told me he had severe brain trauma. They tried everything, but her voice broke completely. 2 days later, they told me there was no brain activity. My baby was gone. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I'm so sorry. My mom was with me at the hospital. We were both destroyed, just absolutely shattered. And then a doctor came and talked to us about organ donation. At first, I couldn't even process what he was saying. But then I thought about Nathan, about how he always wanted to help people, and I knew what he would want. So I said yes. They told me his liver, his heart, and his corneas would all be donated. 3 people would get a second chance because of my son. 3 miracles from one incredible boy. That's what I tell myself on the hard days. And there are a lot of hard days, Michael. It's been a year, and some mornings I still wake up and forget for just a second that he's gone. Then reality hits all over again. We talked for over an hour that first call, about grief and gratitude, about loss and hope, about how life can be so brutally unfair and yet still contain moments of profound beauty. When we finally hung up, I sat on my porch and cried for Nathan, for Rebecca, for the randomness of fate that had taken one child to save another. The next day, I told Emma about the call. She listened with wide, serious eyes. Can I meet her? Emma asked. Nathan's mom? Would you want to? Yes, I want to thank her. I want her to know that I'm taking good care of Nathan's liver. So I called Rebecca back and asked if she'd like to visit, to meet Emma. There was a long pause. I've been hoping you'd ask, she finally said. I need to see her, Michael. I need to see the life that came from Nathan's passing. Would next weekend work? We made plans for Rebecca to fly to Austin the following Saturday. I'd pick her up from the airport while Emma was at a friend's house for a birthday party, and we'd all meet at home afterward. The night before Rebecca's arrival, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how this meeting might affect Emma, affect Rebecca, affect all of us. What if it was too much? What if seeing Emma was too painful for Rebecca? What if Emma felt overwhelmed by the weight of carrying someone else's organ? But when Saturday arrived and I went to pick up Rebecca at the airport, all my nervousness faded when I saw her standing outside baggage claim. She was in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and kind eyes that looked like they'd seen too much sorrow. She was pretty in an understated way, wearing jeans and a simple blue blouse, carrying just a small overnight bag. "Rebecca?" I called out. She turned, and when our eyes met, something unexpected happened. I felt a jolt of recognition, as if I'd known her forever, even though we'd never met. She smiled tentatively and walked toward me. "Michael? That's me. It's so good to finally meet you in person." We stood there for an awkward moment, and then she stepped forward and hugged me. It wasn't a brief, polite hug. It was the embrace of two people who'd been through something profound together, even from a distance. "Thank you for inviting me," she said when we pulled apart. "I've been so nervous about this." "Me too," I admitted. "But I think Emma's even more nervous. She's been planning what to say to you for days." On the drive back to my house, Rebecca told me more about her life. She was a single mother, had never married. Nathan's father had been someone she'd met at a party when she was in her late 20s, a brief connection that resulted in an unexpected pregnancy. She'd never been able to track him down to tell him about Nathan, but she'd been happy about the baby anyway, thrilled when Nathan was born. "He was my whole world," she said softly, staring out the window at the Austin suburbs rolling past. "Being his mom was the best thing I ever did. And now, you're still his mom," I said gently. "You'll always be his mom." When we pulled into my driveway, I could see Emma's face in the window, watching for us. By the time Rebecca and I got out of the car, Emma had opened the front door and was standing on the porch, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Rebecca stopped when she saw her, and I watched her face transform. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Emma?" she said softly. "Hi," Emma said in a small voice. "Hi, Mrs. Mitchell. Please call me Rebecca." They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, and then Emma walked down the porch steps and right up to Rebecca. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around Rebecca's waist and hugged her tight. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "Thank you for letting Nathan help me." Rebecca dropped to her knees and held Emma like she was the most precious thing in the world, and they both cried. I stood back, giving them space, my own eyes blurring with tears. When they finally pulled apart, Rebecca cupped Emma's face in her hands. "You look so healthy, so beautiful and strong. I feel good now, really good. Want to see my scar?" Rebecca laughed through her tears. "If you want to show me." Emma lifted her shirt to show the long scar running across her abdomen, already fading to pink. "Dr. Chen says it'll barely be visible in a few years, but I don't mind it. It reminds me that I'm lucky." We spent the afternoon together, Rebecca, Emma, and me. We went to Emma's favorite park, the one with the big playground and the duck pond. Emma showed Rebecca how high she could swing now, how far she could run without getting tired. Rebecca watched everything with wonder and sorrow mixed together on her face. Later, we went to dinner at a casual restaurant Emma loved. Over pizza and pasta, Emma told Rebecca about school and her friends and her dreams for the future. Rebecca told Emma about Nathan, about his love of baseball and Legos, and how he used to tell the worst jokes that somehow always made people laugh anyway. "What was his favorite joke?" Emma asked. Rebecca smiled. "Okay, so he'd ask, 'Why don't scientists trust atoms?' 'Why?' 'Because they make up everything!'" Emma giggled, and the sound made Rebecca's smile widen, even as tears rolled down her cheeks. That evening, when we got back to my house, I offered to take Rebecca to a hotel, but she hesitated. "Would it be too much of an imposition if I stayed here? I don't want the day to end yet." "You're more than welcome," I said. "We have a guest room. Please, stay." After Emma went to bed, Rebecca and I sat on my back porch, drinking coffee and talking. The night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. "Today was harder than I expected," Rebecca admitted. "But also better. Seeing Emma so healthy and happy, it doesn't make Nathan's loss hurt any less. But it gives it meaning, you know. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you." "I haven't been on a single date since Nathan passed," she said suddenly, then laughed. "I don't know why I'm telling you that. I haven't been able to think about moving forward with my life. Everything stopped when he died. That's understandable. There's no timeline for grief. But seeing Emma today, I realized that Nathan would want me to live. He'd want me to be happy. He was always telling me I worked too hard, that I needed to have more fun." She turned to look at me. "What about you? Are you seeing anyone?" "No. Between Emma's illness and recovery, I haven't even thought about dating. And before that, after the divorce, I was just focused on being a good dad. You are a good dad. I can tell. We talked until late, sharing stories about our kids, our lives, our hopes and fears. There was something easy about talking to Rebecca, despite the heavy circumstances that had brought us together. She was kind and funny and real in a way I hadn't encountered in a long time. The next morning, I drove Rebecca to the airport. We stood outside the terminal, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. "Thank you for yesterday," she said. "It meant more to me than you could possibly know." "Thank you for coming, and for your son's incredible gift. We'll never be able to repay you, but please know that Emma will live a full, beautiful life because of Nathan." She hugged me goodbye, and I watched her disappear into the terminal, feeling a strange mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. That evening, as I was helping Emma with her homework, she looked up at me with a serious expression. "Daddy, I really like Rebecca. Can we see her again?" "I'm sure we can arrange that if she wants to." "Good, because she seems really sad, and I think we could help her feel less sad." Out of the mouths of children. Emma was right. Rebecca did seem sad, and not just because of Nathan. There was a loneliness to her that I recognized because I felt it too. That night, after Emma was asleep, I texted Rebecca. "Thank you again for coming. Emma loved meeting you. She wants to know if you'd like to visit again soon." Her response came quickly. "I'd love that. And Michael, thank you for giving me a reason to smile again." Over the next few weeks, we texted regularly. What started as updates about Emma evolved into conversations about everything. Our jobs, our favorite movies, our thoughts on life and loss and hope. Rebecca had a dry sense of humor that made me laugh, and a depth of character forged by hardship. 6 weeks after her first visit, Rebecca came back to Austin, this time for a long weekend. Emma was beside herself with excitement. We went to a resort about an hour outside the city, one with a water park and hiking trails and a beautiful lake. Emma splashed in the wave pool and rode down water slides, her laughter echoing across the park. Watching her, so healthy, so full of life, I caught Rebecca's eye and saw her crying happy tears. That night, after Emma had gone to bed exhausted from the day's adventures, Rebecca and I took a walk around the resort grounds. The night air was soft and warm, carrying the scent of honeysuckle. We wandered down a path that led to a small garden with benches overlooking the lake. "This has been a perfect day," Rebecca said. "It really has." We sat on a bench, and in the moonlight reflecting off the water, she turned to me. "Michael, I need to tell you something. These past few weeks, talking to you, getting to know you and Emma, it's been healing in a way I didn't think was possible. You've given me hope that life can still hold joy. You've done the same for me," I said honestly. "When Emma was sick, I was so focused on just surviving each day that I forgot what it felt like to actually live. You've reminded me." She reached for my hand, and when our fingers intertwined, it felt right in a way that nothing had felt right in years. "Is this crazy?" she asked. "Given how we met? Given everything?" "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe it's exactly what was supposed to happen. Maybe something beautiful can come from something tragic." She leaned in, and I met her halfway, and we kissed under the stars beside that quiet lake. It was gentle and sweet, and felt like a beginning. The next month, when Rebecca came to Austin again, it was as my girlfriend. Emma was thrilled, seeing nothing strange about the situation, only that two people she loved were finding happiness together. Sarah was supportive when I told her, though I could hear the surprise in her voice. Wow. That's unexpected, Michael. But if you're happy, I'm happy for you." 10 months into our relationship, I knew I wanted Rebecca in my life permanently, not just as Emma's connection to Nathan, but as my partner, my love, my future. On a trip to Dallas to visit her, I took her to the park where Nathan had his accident. It was hard for her to go there, but she'd been working with a therapist on processing her grief in healthy ways. We stood under the oak tree where it had happened, and I held her hand. "Nathan was an incredible kid," I said, "and he had an incredible mom. You raised a boy who saved 3 lives, Rebecca. You should be so proud." "I am," she said softly. "I'll always wish he was still here, but I'm learning to be grateful for the time I had with him and for the legacy he left." I got down on one knee right there, under that tree, in the place where our story had really begun. "Rebecca, you've brought light back into my life when I thought everything would always be shadowed by fear and loss. Emma adores you. I love you. Will you marry me?" She said yes through tears, and we held each other under Nathan's tree, honoring the past while embracing the future. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony in Austin, with Emma as our flower girl and both our families in attendance. During the ceremony, the officiant talked about how love can emerge from loss, how healing can take unexpected forms, how sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. A year after the wedding, Rebecca gave birth to our son. We named him Nathan Michael, honoring both the boy who'd made Emma's life possible and the journey we'd all been on together. Watching Rebecca hold our newborn son, with Emma leaning over to kiss his tiny forehead, I thought about the miracle of how we'd gotten here. One family's tragedy had led to another child's salvation, which had led to healing and love and new life. Emma is 14 now, a healthy, vibrant teenager who wants to study medicine and help other kids like she was helped. She wears a medical alert bracelet and takes her anti-rejection medications faithfully, never forgetting that her second chance came at a tremendous cost. Every year on the anniversary of Nathan's passing, we all go to Dallas and visit his grave. Emma brings flowers and tells him about her year, about school and friends and her dreams. Rebecca and I stand back and watch, holding hands, while little Nathan, now 3 years old, plays in the grass nearby. Life is strange and precious and fragile. We don't get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose what we do with what happens. Rebecca chose to let her son save others. Emma chose to live fully and gratefully. I chose to open my heart again, and together we chose to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Some nights, I still pray, but now, instead of desperate pleas for mercy, my prayers are filled with gratitude. Gratitude for Emma's health, for Rebecca's love, for the family we've created. And always, always gratitude for an 8-year-old boy named Nathan Mitchell, who loved baseball and bad jokes and flying kites, whose final act was one of extraordinary generosity. His liver beats in my daughter's body. His memory lives in our hearts. His legacy is written in every moment of joy we experience as a family. And in that way, Nathan isn't really gone at all. He's woven into the fabric of our lives, forever part of our story. If you're reading this, and you've ever faced something that seemed impossible to overcome, I want you to know, there is hope on the other side of despair. There is light on the other side of darkness. Sometimes our greatest blessings come wrapped in our deepest pain. Consider registering as an organ donor. Consider that your final act on this earth could be the gift of life to someone else. Nathan's family made that choice in their darkest hour, and because of it, my daughter got to grow up. 3 families got miracles, and love found a way through the grief. Hold your loved ones close. Don't take a single day for granted. Life can change in an instant, for better or worse, and all we can do is meet each moment with courage, faith, and an open heart. May you find strength in your struggles, may you find hope in your heartbreak, and may you never forget that even in our darkest nights, dawn is always coming.